I'm Aarti. Welcome to part 2 of my Royal Talents sketchbook tour. Last time we finished on this page. I'm going to now show you the rest of the sketchbook, and it's a real lesson in what happens when you let your intrusive thoughts influence what you do in your sketchbook. I was so happy with the second half of the sketchbook that I even made it into a sketchbook calendar, which I will show you at the end of this video. So now let's go into the top-down shots and I will show you what I made in the second half of the Royal Talent sketchbook. I ended part 1 of my previous sketchbook tour on this page. All of this is contained in that. Coming back to page 1, I started the sketchbook in 2023 May and I completed it just over a year later in November of this year. As I said, I let my intrusive thoughts in, and the first thing I made after doing that was this page. Bridgerton had just come out and I've long been a fan of Regency romances, less spicy than Bridgerton perhaps, more of the Georgette Hare variety, and I decided to make my little characters in Regency outfits. This is a theme that I feel like I could carry quite far, and I did do another spread of the 3 Bridgerton brothers, slightly more sketchy than this one. This was a little bit more controlled, and not quite period clothing, but fun anyway. The next one is also a Bridgerton spread, but I feel like this one was a little bit more fun. I fleshed out the gentleman character, but not so much the lady, just put her into the background. And as per usual, I used Tombow pens, pencils, multimedia, just to create this effect. I think these are really fun and I really want to explore these much further in actual paintings rather than just in my sketchbook. This one was done at a craft market that was quite slow for that day. I do regular markets, or did regular markets. I haven't done them this winter, just taking a break. It was a slow day, so I just decided to work in my sketchbook. I did finish some of the coloring in later on after the market, but the main drawing was done while I was at the fair. Here I got some new art supplies. These are the Pro Marker watercolor from Winsor & Newton, which I got Payne's Grey and Cadmium Red Deep Hue, Permanent Rose, Yellow Ochre, and Hooker's Green Dark. I also got a new luminance pencil in Dark Phthalocyanine Green because I use luminance pencils quite a lot, and some of my pencils are really tiny now, so some of them are replacements. I also got some Liquitex pens. These are their acrylic markers, and I got Parchment, Unbleached Titanium, Raw Umber, and Hooker's Green Permanent. You can see there's quite a difference between the Hooker's Green in the watercolor and in the Liquitex acrylic marker. I did try them on top of each other. It's just an experimental page trying to figure out the new supplies that I'd got. It's important to do this in the sketchbook that you're using, as well as on final paper that you use for main artworks, just so you get to know the materials and how they work on different surfaces. I've mentioned before that the paper in this sketchbook is really cream, so the colors on this are very different to how they appear on whiter paper. It's important to understand your materials so that you can use them appropriately to get the effects that you want in your art. Again, intrusive thoughts. What if Little Mermaid were a dog? Why not, right? Again, more Tombow markers. I love these things. They're really great to work with. And I think I've got a bunch of Deco Brush markers as well, the Karen Deco Brush. I am filming a video on this. It's taking me a little while, but I will get there. And then, of course, pencils over the top. And this is the Winsor & Newton Pro Marker watercolor again. This was a fun session. I actually did an Instagram live during the Super Seconds Festival online event on Instagram, and people suggested what to draw, and I drew them. Each of these was maybe like 2 or 3 minutes, maximum of 5 minutes. Alice in Wonderland, obviously as dogs, because my aim for this year was to just draw dog people, dogs, the things that I love, rather than things that people think I should draw. So they wanted me to draw Alice in Wonderland. I drew Alice in Wonderland as a dog. The same with the White Rabbit. And then a Saluki sunbathing. I forgot what a Saluki looked like, so somebody described it, and then described it, or I worked it out, I can't remember now. And then I drew a Saluki sunbathing. The same with a strawberry dog and a blueberry dog. They just make me laugh so much, and I think that's why I make them. It's just a bit of fun. It gives me pleasure. It gives me great satisfaction to draw them and to figure out how to draw a dog person that looks kind of realistic and has an expression. A lot of the expressions are garnered from my own dog, who's very fluffy and yet manages to express himself very, very well. And I think these were the last two in that session. A career dog who could be a solicitor or an accountant, and an artist or a graphic designer with a bunch of tattoos and some degrees. This was also an Instagram live session on that same weekend. A friend, Abby Lou, was casting plants in plaster of Paris while I was simultaneously drawing the plants that she was casting. And I ended up with a dog that I then called Parsley Wilson and Abby the bee. I don't know if you can see the bee in the corner there. Tombows with pencil over the top and a little bit of Liquitex marker, I think, or maybe it was Posca. I love this one so much that I did put it in my sketchbook calendar, which I will show you in a bit. I really love the looseness of this, and I want to bring some more of that into the final pieces that I do. I tend to get a little bit more stiff in my final pieces, and I really want to rectify that. So taking this as an example, I kind of like tried to bring it forward in the work that I made after this. Also, this was done in less than 30 minutes, I think, as far as I can remember. The live is actually still on my Instagram if you want to go and watch it. I'll link it for you down in the description box below, as I will for all the art supplies that I'm mentioning, as well as the sketchbook itself and my calendar. These were some illustrations that I did for a client. He has written a book of his own poetry that he just wanted to self-publish and give to some of his friends and family. I have it here. It's just a collection of poems that he wrote at various points in his life, and he wanted a few illustrations that would suit the text on certain pages. Just a few of them here and there. So yeah, did those, and I'll show you them. These are the basic illustrations, and then I finished them off on the iPad. So they might not make too much sense to you, but they are very relevant to the poems in the book. He wanted kind of a sketchy style, so I did some of the bottles and things. Wasn't quite sure of the shape that I wanted, so I did multiple things. And of course, these are in a pub, the pools that you have for beer. After that, I did some outdoor sketching. Some of them were based on photographs, I think. I think this one was in person. I can't remember now. But it's the flooded area at our local woods. There was a lot of rain this year, and the water came up almost to the path where we walk. And of course, there's my dog, Sam, floating around in the water, puttering around. He loves a good dip. But I really tried to get the texture and the looseness that I had a few pages ago in this, bringing it into this painting as well. I did prepare a background with acrylic inks. I've really been loving them, especially the golden ones and the Schmincke Aerocolor as well. I think the first ones that I got were the Dalit Brownie FW inks. I still love them as well, but the other colors that I've got in the Aerocolor and the golden seem to suit me a little bit better. This was another one where I'd prepared the background beforehand and then drawn over it. Some dogs, again based on the local woods where we walk our dog all the time. These I used Neocolors for some of it. And then I used my Fude Nib pen, which is a pen with a slightly bent nib. And I think some of this is the Deco brush, as well as Liquitex acrylic markers, these ones in the background, as well as for the little highlights. It's really useful when you want some opaque ink on top of a pre-prepared ground. You can see I can get a lot of texture here because the ground is coming through where I haven't covered areas in the Neocolor. I really love trees. They fascinate me in all of their forms. I have planned a tree video, but I just haven't got around to filming it, with all my favorite books about trees and the trees that are around us. I'll do that this year, I promise. Well, this coming year anyway. In October, April of Monkey Mintaka came to visit, and we went around London sketching and drawing, and this was the view from the top of Primrose Hill towards the City of London. There's the Shard, and then there's the Gherkin building, and that was basically the entire South Bank and the City of London over here. So we sat on Primrose Hill and we drew for a bit, and then we went into town, ate some good food, and had a really jolly good time. Once again, a pre-prepared background, and then I just drew on top of that with my Fude pen and some pencils and some Neocolors. Next, some more prepared backgrounds. I think I've posted about this on my Patreon. And then more trees that I was just like doing studies. I was trying to figure out the shapes that I like, the layering of trees that are like more in the background, lighter coming up to darker in the front, so that the front stands out a bit more. These are just studies from my garden again, in very simple, the Fude pen with the Fude fountain pen with ink in it. And I think I used my Lumos pen as well for some of these. I think these are Lumos pen in the front with the waterproof ink in them. More studies of trees on the bottom. These were not done on the same day. These two top ones were done when I went with my friend Harinder to sketch at the British Museum. I didn't take enough white. I feel like I should have had a little bit more white for these ones, but I'm fairly pleased with them anyway. But the tree studies were done on the same day as I did these. I just pre-prepared these backgrounds just to use later on so that I had some sort of base to work on. These were actually some leftover ink that I just spread out on a page, and then I did the faces and turned them into people later on. This is something I do fairly often, like if I've got leftover paint, I'll just do some blobs and things and then turn them into stuff afterwards. I've even labeled it leftover paint people, just to remind myself exactly what it was. Most of these people are from observational drawing in my head, so references that I remember from various trips that I've taken, and then I've translated them into the blobs that are on this page. This was a page again from April's visit. I think I'd already got these pages prepared, so I had a bunch of pages and then I've gone back and forth over them, using them whenever I wanted. So we did Primrose Hill, and then we went, some of these were done on Primrose Hill as well. I think this one, and this one. And then I color-coded them. So the blue ones were done when we went to Marylebone Church Square and sat there on a bench and just drew things. So I color-coded them so I knew which ones were done where. And I think this is a trend that I might follow later on as well and see, because it just makes it easier to figure out where I did what. And I also did this particular one. This guy was sitting with his dog on his lap like a little baby. And it was so cute. He was a fluffy white dog. And then these ones I did on the day when I went to the British Museum. So as you can see, I've jumped back and forth because these were prepared pages and this was not. So I did those in the atrium, and then this was also done in the atrium as well, various details. When we went to the British Museum, it was a little bit disappointing because we went up to the top floor. First of all, there was a huge line for security. Then we went up to the top floor to the Japanese exhibit and realized it was closed, but there was a small display of Netsuke outside that. So we stood there and sketched for a little while. And that's where we managed to do all of these. Again, I've put some of the reference pictures on my Patreon, so if you want to go and sketch those, you can. But the disappointing thing about the British Museum was that it was so crowded and there were no benches to sit and sketch anywhere, unlike other museums that we've been to. And so we ended up back in the atrium just sketching what we saw there, observational sketching of people and things. I don't know if we'll go back to the British Museum because it really wasn't a very good experience for sketching. We'll see. Maybe we'll try it again sometime when it's a little bit less crowded. This is the last drawing I did at the British Museum. This lady's glasses, we just had to draw her. And then after the British Museum, or before that, I can't remember, on the same day I went and got these 3 colors of the Schmincke Aerocolor acrylic ink at Cornelissen, which is one of my favorite art shops. I will do a tour of them at some point soon. And that same day, some Diatramentis document ink arrived in sepia brown and green gray. So I just tested them out here just to see what they looked like. Again, they look different on white paper than they do on this cream paper in this sketchbook. I know I keep harping on the cream color of this paper, but it's one of the things I dislike most about this sketchbook and the reason that I would not rebuy this sketchbook. I do have the white version of this sketchbook, which I've shown you in a video before, so I'm going to go through that and see if I like that a little bit better. But in the same price range, there are other sketchbooks that I feel are better value. But that's not to put you off from buying the sketchbook if you like it. Loads of people love it and use it daily. It just is not the right color paper for me. Personal opinion, that's all. Here I tested out some of my Derwent Inktense pencils. I just wanted to see how they worked on this particular paper. I was layering, blending, just mixing up different colors and seeing how they worked. If you've not seen an Inktense pencil before, first of all, where have you been? And second of all, this is what they look like. They are water-soluble pencils and they become a little bit brighter when they are wet. And once they are wet, they become permanent. Then they don't rub off at all. And you can blend them, you can draw over them. They're really great pencils. They are very intense colors, as the name Inktense suggests. So if you're looking for pastels and things, you might have to tone it down or work over them or something like that. This was a spread that I did based on a Patreon tutorial. They did faces, but obviously I am into dogs, so I did 24 dogs instead. Just divided up the page. And then I worked in a limited palette, so I did a bunch of blobs and then worked on them and created the dogs out of that. So you can see it's quite cohesive, so you'll find the same color in multiple places, and that's what makes the whole page somewhat cohesive rather than just being bitty. It's an exercise I might do again as well. Again, a page of experimentation. These are colors that I wanted to put into a travel kit. So this is my gouache travel palette. So some of these colors are from here. And if I was to use a limited palette, what would I use was the question. So I've got Luminance Pencils Green Ochre, Dark Sap Green, Dark Phthalocyanine Green, Sepia, French Grey, and Indanthrone Blue. Then Durban Chromaflow Natural Brown, Obsidian Green, a Posca Red pencil. I love these pencils, they're really great. I'm not sure about the light fastness, so I only tend to use them in my sketchbook. A Dark Indigo from Faber-Castell Polychromos, Burnt Sienna, and Chrome Oxide Green. The Polychromos are harder than the Luminance, so they're better for drawing, and these are better for coloring in, I feel. And then Prismacolor, Black Grape, Clay Rose, Neon Pink, and Neon Orange. A Liquitex White, Essential, and Caran d'Ache Aquarelle White. In the gouache, Daniel Smith Hansa Yellow, Light, Daniel Smith Quinacridone Magenta, Daniel Smith Titanium White, Winsor Newton Pale Rose Blush, Winsor Newton Olive Green, Winsor Newton Sepia, Daniel Smith Titanium Buff, and the Holbein Naples Yellow. A good combination of colors to use for a limited palette. The next day, I was actually using that limited palette to do this doodle drawing while I was watching something else. I just sort of like started here, moved around, fiddled around with it, and ended up with this page. It's not something I usually do, but I kind of like it. It just ended up being a painting doodle, if that's a thing. Some colors did bleed here and there, but I kind of enjoy how that worked out. I didn't do any pencils over the top, except in some areas, but I might go over it again and just like redo some of it. Or do a whole new painting, who knows? Then I went back to my dog people. I wore this lovely dress to a friend's wedding and then this on Diwali lunch day. And this also is in the calendar. I'll show you that in a minute. I keep saying intrusive thoughts, but these pretty much are things that just came to me. They're not things like, some of these are observational, obviously, but the intrusive thoughts are putting the dog faces on them or just choosing which ones to draw. Or like this one. This is a real life experience where every time my husband does yoga, my dog interrupts him and tries to cuddle with him. So downward dog interrupted. It's just drawing whatever the heck you like. I guess intrusive thoughts is just a simple way of saying draw whatever you want. Draw whatever comes to your mind. Just your sketchbook is there for experimentation, for playing, for drawing your everyday life, for just doodling while you're watching something, for experimenting with color, for drawing tutorials from other people's Patreons, for, again, experimenting with color, doing life drawings, going out and about and getting references, using leftover paint, using pre-prepared backgrounds. It is whatever you want to make it. And I think that's why I enjoyed the second half of the sketchbook so much more, because I am not a prolific artist. I don't use my sketchbook every day. I don't do multiple pages every day. I don't even draw almost every day because there's a lot of admin and stuff like that to do. And also, like, sometimes I'm just tired. I have chronic illness. I don't draw every day is the gist of what I want to say. But when I do draw, I draw exactly what I want to draw. And that has been life-changing for me this year. The next page was a color palette for the National Gallery trip. I took quite a lot of colors here. Some of them similar to the colors that I showed you before. And then, oops, that page has stuck together. There we go. And then these are the ones that I actually ended up using. So not a lot, actually. So let it be a lesson. Don't take as many colors as I did. Take less and use them all. I'm not quite sure why I have some blue tack in this page. But anyway, let's get rid of that. Then I got some more acrylic inks from Liquitex. I got a red oxide. Those are these ones. Liquitex, that's a different color, but anyway. Liquitex acrylic inks in red oxide and sap green permanent. And then I mixed them and got this lovely dark green color. I do have some empty markers that I want to fill, and hopefully some of these colors will come in handy for that. On the way back from that trip, I actually passed through Chinatown and picked up some jackfruit. It's one of my absolute favorite fruits. And if you're Tamil, you'll understand. But if you're not, go try a ripe jackfruit. You'll get it. Some of the acrylic ink did leak through in the spine here, but it's a sketchbook, so it's all right. That's part of the joy of like having colors flow onto different pages and bleed over like that. Now this page is a special one. This is when I decided to do some of the pages from this sketchbook as a calendar. And I've actually used it as the cover for my 2025 sketchbook calendar, which I will, like I said, show you in a bit. I ended up actually writing 2024 because I forgot what year next year was, and then I had to redo it to 2025. This page is one of my favorites in the sketchbook. I was just drawing trees and then I put one of my dog people in, and it represents exactly what I like to do in the woods, is just go and sit with a book and absorb nature. Just feel the roughness of the tree behind me and look at all the trees and the birds and the foliage and everything, and just like rest and relax and recuperate in nature. It feels like it recharges me. But yeah, this is a series I really want to take forward. And again, I've managed to get the looseness that I was looking for and want to carry forward as well. Almost done with the sketchbook now. The label for the sketchbook I've stuck in here. And this is just a page that I used to experiment with little pencils and things like that. Just when I was like fiddling about maybe with some of these pages, I just tested some of the pencils over here just to see what color they were before I used them on these pages. And on the last page, I've just got my postcard here. I'm not quite sure why I stuck that in. Maybe because if I lose the sketchbook, that people can contact me. And just some experimentation over here as well. Now, let me show you the pages that I popped into my sketchbook calendar. Here it is. What I did was I put a gray sheet of paper down, popped the sketchbook open on pages that I wanted to include, took a photograph, and then used a print-on-demand site in order to create the sketchbook. So it's wire bound on the top, and it has a little punch hole there to which you hang it. And when you open it up, that's what it looks like. There's a picture on the top and a 2025 calendar. So I've got 12 full months, large spaces where you can write stuff. And let me show you the images that I included. This one, The Downward Dog Interrupted, was for January, because most people tend to have some goals about fitness in January, so that's why that one is there. Page 2, February, is more about socializing, and people get back into the zone of things after just chilling out for January, doing dry January or being exercising or whatever it is. March tends to be a little bit of a nothing month, but it's a lot about commuting, or in England it tends to be a very grey month. It's very cold and rainy and not very nice, but I thought this kind of like suited that page. In April, things start to get a bit better because spring arrives, it's a bit more social, so I put that in there. And also I made this sketch in April, so I thought that would be appropriate for this page. In May, things start to bloom, it's better weather in England. Obviously, this had to go. Parsley Wilson had to be for May. In June, a lot of weddings happen, a lot of celebrations happen. So I thought this festive page would be handy. July, I did this for Burbfest. And in August, it's a lot about spending time outdoors, sitting in the sun, going to parks. September is when market season comes back into the zone. So I thought that would be appropriate. October, I just put this because it's more about getting cozy with jumpers and things and doing your favorite things as winter comes in. November, the woods start to look a little bit more bare. You get cozy, you start wearing your winter things. And for December, I did a little festive spread where it's a little bit more Christmassy. So that is my 2025 sketchbook calendar. All of these are pages from this sketchbook, as you would have seen. And then that's the cover page, of course. So the sketchbook calendar is available in my online shop. I will link it for you down in the description box below, along with all my art supplies and everything. I do use affiliate links, so I may earn a small commission, but it costs you nothing extra. I hope you enjoyed that sketchbook tour. The sketchbook calendar is available in my online shop at artidevisher.com. If you enjoyed this sketchbook talk, go watch some of my other ones and perhaps you will also be inspired to put your intrusive thoughts into your sketchbook.